Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it is my pleasure to introduce this new webinar organized by our Belgian-China Chamber of Commerce. In the last few years, Europe and our country have witnessed a significant increase in the number of cyber attacks and incidents, from ransomware and phishing to malware. That's why at the level of the European Union, the EU has approved the NIS-2 Directive to enhance cybersecurity across Europe. These regulations pose new challenges for foreign companies, and especially Chinese companies in Europe, and also for European companies doing business with China in terms of data protection and cybersecurity. Chinese laws like the CSL and the PIPL also compel these companies to adjust processes and implement security measures. How can your company efficiently implement these security requirements? This is the purpose of our webinar. And I'm very grateful to our two speakers of China Brand Consulting today for their presence and to share with us their knowledge about the topic. Let me first introduce Dr. Hans-Joachim Fuchs. He's the managing partner of China Brand Consulting. He's an engineer. He holds a doctorate in economics and social sciences. Dr. Fuchs is internationally experienced management consultant. He's a China expert. He has over 35 years of professional experience and advises well-known German and European companies from various industries. He has been director at Deloitte. He's a member of the executive board at Braxton Associates. He has been the vice director at Prognos AG, manager at Verlagsgruppe Handelsblatt, and since 2004, he's a managing partner of China Brand Consulting. Together with him, we have the pleasure to have Mrs. Tamara Georgina Hehne. She's an experienced consultant and sinologist currently serving as consultant at China Brand Consulting in Munich. She specializes in intercultural communication and management, cybersecurity, and data protection. Tamara has a diverse background as a franchise and event consultant, as well as a graphic designer and marketing manager, where she has successfully developed and managed corporate identities and executed marketing strategies across Europe and China. She is fluent in German, English, and Chinese. She holds a Master of Arts in Modern Sinology from the University of Göttingen. She studied in Taiwan during her bachelor's and master's degree, and she has completed professional training in media design. She's also pursuing further education in law alongside her professional commitments. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have the chance to have with us two real experts on the subject, and therefore I'm happy to leave the floor to Dr. Fuchs.
Thank you very much, Bernard. It's a pleasure to be here and to share our experiences and know-how related to cybersecurity in China and in the Chinese European business. So, some words about China Brand. We are 20 years old and focused on cybersecurity, data protection, IT compliance. Until now, the most business was in the so-called multi-level protection scheme. You know this, the MLP 2.0 requires that all companies in China, Chinese companies and foreign companies, have to get a certificate by police. You are forced by law to analyze your IT systems, to go to a test center, check your hardware and software, and then finally you get a certificate from the local police, PSB, that your systems, IT systems, network-related IT systems are safe. This was until now our main business in China. Then we had some projects regarding cross-border data transfer. You know that the regulations of the cross-border data verkehr are more and more strict. So China looks very careful which data leave the country. Something is allowed, other data transfers are very restricted. Mainly personal data, but also technical data that could be critical for the safetiness of the Chinese country. China looks for the security of the country. The Europeans look more for the freedom of the individuals, but the Chinese look more on the safety of the whole society. That makes a little bit of difference. New is now the coming Network Data Security Management Regulations, NDSMR. This is brand new. These are regulations coming in force in January, and these regulations expand the whole system of restrictions and legal aspects, and they tighten it, they make it more complicated. And the regulations integrate CSL, DSL, and PIPL. So from January on, the situation in China is more difficult. And now the latest development is now the NIS-2. The Europeans follow with the Network and Information Security Directive 2. They come after the Chinese, and they make it much more difficult, the business. So we must be much more have a look and be aware of the situation in both countries, in China and in the European Union and in Belgium. So we will have a short view on the NIS-2 directive. What is it requiring? What does Chinese companies in Europe have to do? But also Chinese companies in China, which have data transfer to Europe. They are hit by the new regulations, and Tamara will go to the main restrictions and main requirements of this new directive. So Tamara, it's your turn.
Thank you, Achim. Thank you, Bernard, for the warm introduction. And thank you, Achim, for the little bit further introduction of us and the whole topic. Yes, I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for organizing this webinar for this more than important topic in NIS-2 today. And I will share a little presentation with you in 1 second. So, can you see my screen?
Perfect.
Perfect. Great. So yeah, let's get into it. So I first will dive into the NIS-2 requirements and give you a solid background of the directive itself. And even if we are all specialized in and on China, I want to emphasize firstly that this is very important for every company operating in the European Union or with the European Union. So even if you're now have not much close connections to China, you're still welcome to stay and listen to me and to us, because this is very important for nearly every company operating in the European Union. I want to start off with a small graphic that gives a good overview over what happened in the last years and probably will happen in the world of cybersecurity. So the image presents the data on the estimated annual cost of cybercrime worldwide. And this is expressed in trillion US dollars. What you can see here is from 2018 to 2028. So it shows a very steady and significant increase over the years. And that highlights the growing financial impact of cybercrime globally and on the organizations. And that highly indicates that every business and organization must strengthen their cybersecurity strategies. not only to mitigate the rising costs, but also the attacks itself, which are projected to almost double between last year, 2023, as you can see, until 2028. So yeah, this just to give you a short picture of how severe the situation is at the moment. And this, this is for every country in the European Union itself severe. So not only in Belgium, not only in Germany, it's very important for every country. So I want to go a little bit into the historical overview of the NIS-2. And as the name says, NIS-2, there was a NIS-1 first. So the first NIS directive was adopted in 2016 because cybersecurity attacks were on the rise. And the law was passed 2017. And then, as you just saw from the statistics, it's on the rise. So it got a new overhaul, and now we have the NIS-2 Directive. It was already published 2 years ago, and Belgium was quite fast in adopting this law. Belgium is one of, I think, only 5 or 6 countries till today implemented the NIS-2 Directive. So well done, Belgium. Germany is not that far. And the NIS-2 directive says that the member states must transpose the directive into national law, actually by this month, so October 2024. And until next year, March, all the entities, essential and important entities under the NIS-2 directive, I will go into detail what this exactly means in a minute, are required to register in Belgium with the Belgian Center for Cybersecurity. So that means that you as a company go to the cybersecurity center and say, okay, I have a company and I do this and that for protecting my IT systems, for example. So this must be done by March next year. And all the member states of the European Union needs to establish a list of these essential and important entities by April 2025. So this is the latest date where you need to register your company if you fall under the NIS-2 directive. Yeah, and what's the goal of this NIS-2 directive actually? It strengthens and expands cybersecurity requirements for all the essential and important entities in the European Union. It should improve the resilience and security of the digital infrastructure, and it establishes a uniform standards. So it means that the NIS-2 directive is basically something like an umbrella law, umbrella directive, where every state has to comply to this directive. And the member states, as already said, are required to ensure that their cybersecurity measures are on point according to the sectors they are operating in. And I will go into that into a second in detail. In the next slide, I want to dive a little bit deeper into the law itself, into the different articles of the law, but don't worry, I won't go through all the articles. I won't bore you, but it's very important to understand the basic principles of this directive and what it means for your company. So at first we have Article 2, it's the scope. So to whom applies this directive? It applies to public or private entities. This is the first point. And you can see here I added a link, and later we will send you the PPT so you can have a look at yourself what falls under this term public or private entities. And I highly recommend to have a look in it because it's very interesting and it's a very broad frame. And these public or private entities are either qualify as medium-sized enterprise, so that means that you have fewer than 250 employees and an annual turnover not exceeding 50 million euro, and or an annual balance sheet total not exceeding 43 million euro. Or you exceed the ceilings for medium-sized enterprise. That means that you have more than 50 employees or an annual turnover or balance sheet that exceed 10 million euros. And another important aspect that I already mentioned, you need to provide your service or carry out your activities within the European Union. So that even applies to companies out of the European Union if they carrying out their activities in the European Union. So you don't need to be based in the European Union to fall under this directive. And regardless of your company size, if you identify as a critical entity, you are also in the scope of this NIS-2 directive, but this won't be a surprise for you if you are already in the critical sector. So then you can be sure this is very important for you as well, this directive. So what is this essential entities and important entities, what I just mentioned? So what you can see here is on the left side is the critical infrastructure. This was already in place since 2016 with the first NIS directive. So we have the critical sectors such as banking, water, or health. And with the new NIS directive now, we have these additional sectors that are in black here. So these are the important sectors, for example, research, public administration, or production and processing. And especially for the point of production and processing, there are a lot more companies falling under this point now. So in Germany, I heard the number that for the first directive, it was around 4,000 companies affected, and now it's scaled up to 30,000. So in this range, there are a lot of more companies affected by now. And what is demanded, just very short, you have to make sure that you have appropriate technical, operational, and organizational measures for IT security. So a risk management, basically. And another very important point is that you have to notify and report if security incidents are happening. And as I already said, just in short, what are the goals? The security of the European Union. So in Article 7, it's interesting that every nation itself has their own cybersecurity strategy. So it means that each state creates their own plan that outlines its main goals. And as I just said, NIS-2 directive is this kind of umbrella covering all the nation states, but every state has quite a little bit of space to create their own cybersecurity plan. And this is just to ensure and maintain a high level of cybersecurity according to the needs of each state. Sorry. So, and also for the responsibility, each member state must take the responsibility. So it means that there's not one authority for the whole European Union. Every nation has their own authority that will keep an eye on it. And there, Article 8, it goes hand in hand with Article 7, the responsible authorities. What I just said, there is one authority for each member state that establish a single point of contact, and these authorities monitor the compliance with NIS-2. So that means that companies need to coordinate with the competent national authority to ensure the cybersecurity practice. For Belgium, that would be the Center for Cybersecurity in Belgium. And this is what the website looks like. You can have a look on their website. I highly recommend it. It's very nicely structured. And if you are falling under this NIS-2 directive, you have to probably get familiar with the site as well. Then we have at Article 20, it's about governance. And that's a very interesting and new point. It's for the managers of the key institutions, so the companies that fall under the NIS-2 directive. Because from now on, the managers need to improve the cybersecurity risk management measures. They need to monitor the implementation. they must participate in cybersecurity training, and they should regularly train employees to develop all the skills they need to identify and manage risks, because they are responsible for breaches of these measures. So the manager itself, the leading person, is responsible for all the breaches happening. That's a very important point. And in addition, they are liable for compliance with their private assets. So it's not that the company is liable, it's the private manager with his private assets or her private assets. That's a new point in this directive as well. Then we have Article 21. It's about cybersecurity risk management measures. So what do you need to do? And the NIS-2 directive has a very holistic approach this time. So it requires companies to implement not only the technical measures, but also the operational and organizational cybersecurity measures. And as I just mentioned in the article before, that the managers are responsible for training their employees. This is, for example, such a point that falls under the operational aspect, so that you need to be sure that every employee of your company understands what it means when a cybersecurity incident is happening, what they need to do, and how they need to react. And the measures must be based on the latest technology and be proportionate to the risks. And this is a very broad term that the NIS-2 directive has here. So it doesn't give you a correct manual what to do, because this depends on how big is your company and how high is the risk potential in case of any incident happening. So this is how you need to calculate the technology you choose for IT security. And these whole risk management measures include incident management, emergency plans, supply chain security. This is also a very important topic. You don't only need to make sure that your company is secure, but you also need to make sure that all your suppliers are complying to the NIS-2 directive. And the use of multi-factor authentication, for example. And it's not only done with do it once, because as we just saw in the beginning, the cyber attacks are on the rise, and so should be the improvement of the cybersecurity practices. So you should make sure that you're always up to date with your security measures. And if something is happening, that you find out the cause and that you fix it. And then we have the reporting obligations. This is also a little bit stricter than before. You need to report significant security incidents promptly to the competent authority, for example, to the Cybersecurity Center of Belgium. But what is a significant security incident under NIS-2? For example, any incident that causes a major problem for your company's services, for example, that results in a big financial loss, that affects other people or businesses, for example, like DDoS attacks, ransomware, demanding large payments that would result in this big financial loss, or data breaches that affects maybe your customers. And if you don't know what a DDoS attack is, it's a cyber attack where a server or network is overwhelmed with traffic, and that causes it to slow down or make it unavailable to users. That would fall under a security incident. And the impact is always judged based on the level of disruption, the financial cost, or the harm to others, and how severe this harm is to others. And very important, an initial warning must be issued within 24 hours of becoming aware of the incident. And here the focus lies on the word becoming aware. So it's not about when the incident happened, but when you became aware of the incident, then you have 24 hours to make an initial warning. And so this initial warning is, I will show you in a second, that you need to go to the cybersecurity website and report this initial warning. And then a detailed report must be followed within 27 hours. This is like a written, very detailed paper about what exactly happened. And yeah, this report includes the cross-border impact, for example, of the incident. And if customers or other people are affected, you also need to inform these customers about what happened, or maybe what happened with their data. And then the authorities, so for example, the cybersecurity center in Belgium will provide you with support and give you feedback how to manage this incident. And here I made a screenshot from the website, how it looks like on the cybersecurity website of Belgium. On the right side, you see there's a reporting form where you can click and you could report an incident or just get support regarding an incident. So if you are not sure if just an incident happened, or are you just unsure, you're not quite aware of what actually happened, you can just report it and they will support you. Or even if you receive a suspicious message and you're not sure, is this something weird? Be sure and just report it. So that way you're always on the safe side. And then we are nearly done with the articles. Article 32, supervisory and enforcement measures. I just want to give you an overview of what the authorities are authorized to do. So they could come to your company and conduct on-site inspections and external audits. They could order security assessments by independent bodies or authorities. They can carry out ad hoc inspections, so without telling you beforehand that they're coming to inspect, if something could happen, or if something happened, then is there still a potential threat of that this could happen again? They could request access to data and documents. So do you have your compliance documents ready? They could ask for this, they could access it, and they could require evidence of cybersecurity measures being implemented. And that probably will happen next year after March, if every company is registered or should be registered on the official website. And in case a violation happened, the authority can first probably only issue a warning and order measures to fix the security deficiencies, and also require companies to inform affected users if there is a person involved. But you should do that beforehand anyways. So yeah, they can impose fines or suspend certifications. So that would be the worst case. And hopefully it's not coming to that point. Yeah, but the question again, what is a serious violation of the directive? Repeated non-compliance. If they ask again for your compliance documents and you cannot show them. If you fail to report a security incident. If you fail to address deficiencies. If they audit it, if they said you need to fix your IT system, did you do it? And you did not do it, this is a violation. They can, obstructing audits if you don't allow them to come in, or if you refuse, if you not answer. And again, just to mention it again, personal liability, so responsible individuals, in most cases the managers, they can be held personally liable if entities fail to meet the obligations. And we come to the last article, the NIS-2 Directive related to the GDPR. What Achim already talked about is that the GDPR is also, quite a big directive we need to be compliant towards too. And as you may know, it regulates the protection of personal data. And this is the same with NIS-2. It doesn't matter if you are based in the European Union, if you process data from citizens, from European Union citizens, you need to comply to the GDPR. And this affects mostly every company. If you are working with people, you are in contact with the GDPR, and then you need to be compliant to GDPR and NIS-2. And if you fall under the NIS-2 Directive, you need to make sure that you be compliant to both of them. And here we have the connection as well to data protection and cybersecurity. So all the incidents that are probably happening are addressed from the cybersecurity perspective and the data protection perspective. And that brings us to China and to the personal information protection law, as Achim already said in the introduction, and the cybersecurity law. And very freshly introduced, and since from January next year on, very important, the network data security management regulations. So what you can see here is, if your company is in the middle, you're a Belgian company and you fall under the NIS-2 Directive, the GDPR and the NIS-2 is important for you. And if you maybe have a headquarters in China or any connections to China in general, you need to make sure that on the other side, the personal information protection law and the cybersecurity law, and since next year, the NDSMR, it's affecting your business. So you need to be compliant to all of these laws at once. And this is what makes the work for us so interesting. So we have the European perspective and the Chinese perspective, and we're working with all these laws at the same time to help you to be compliant. And if you might already have a certified information security management system in accordance with ISO 27001, which serves as a proof that a company takes its information security seriously and you fulfill the legal requirement, then that's a very good start. It can already meet very efficiently some of the requirements of the NIS-2 Directive. So that's a good starting point, but most of the time it's not enough. So if you fall under this category, make sure you be compliant to all of these laws. And as I just said, just very shortly, the PIPL is China's primary data protection law. It governs how personal data is collected, processed, and stored. So it's closely related to the GDPR in the European Union. And it has extraterritorial reach. So it's the same for the data of European Union citizens. If you work with data out of China from Chinese citizens, you need to be compliant to this law, especially in terms of cross-border data transfer. And this is inevitably when your headquarters, for example, is in China and you're operating in the European Union, there is for sure some cross-border data transfer happening. And the cybersecurity law, as it says, is focused on cybersecurity. And you need to be in alignment with all of these requirements to protect your data and to respond to cyber incidents, as well as the Chinese law requires and the NIS-2 Directive requires this. And in our work, we have a recommended report, usually, that we go through in a detailed way. And I would just give you the most important steps to do if you want to be compliant to the NIS-2 Directive. These are these 5 steps. Firstly, do a risk assessment and the management. Then you need to implement security controls. You need a detailed incident response plan. Very important topic, supplier management and supply chain. And of course, monitoring and regular testing. So it's an ongoing project, actually. These would be the 5 steps. But before, I have a step 0. So if you are not sure if you fall under the NIS-2 law of the Belgian NIS-2 law, for example, I added a link here where you can check if you fall under the directive. And if the result is yes, or you might not sure, or you have problems filling out all the details, or maybe for your company, you are quite sure that you don't fall under this directive, but you might have a critical supply chain. So maybe some of your supplier are in this critical sector. Or if you actually think, no, but I still want to be sure, register your entity as soon as possible, especially because Belgium was so fast and already putting it to law since April. You should do it right away. Then you are on the safe side, because there's basically nothing happening if you don't fall under this directive. Then they would just tell you, you don't fall under this directive. So you're always on the safe side if you register first, and then they will contact you for the next steps. This for the step 0 in advance. And then if you are sure that you fall under this directive, the first step and the most important point is risk assessment and management. So implementation of a comprehensive risk management. What does this mean? You should conduct a very detailed assessment of your existing IT infrastructure, because you need to identify vulnerabilities and potential threats. So what we would do, we would go through all the departments to have a look on what IT systems do you use. We make a very detailed list and have a look at the measures, the technical and organizational measures, and what kind of security measures you have. For example, do you use a password manager? This should be quite common, but unfortunately it's not. We have a lot of situations where someone is maybe using their pet name and the birthday as a password, because it's easy to remember. So this would be something to do. Check, is everything in place, and make a list, make a risk and gap analysis to identify all the potential threats. And the key questions to ask would be, which systems are very essential for operations, which have high priority, and where are the greatest security gaps? And I would recommend to establish also a project team, of course, depending on your company size, but establish a project team to implement NIS-2 into your company and involve all key stakeholders. So involve data protection, involve the IT, involve legal, involve, of course, the management, just to get everyone on board and to build this awareness that this is a very, very important topic, and that every person, even if they have nothing to do with these departments, I'm sure they're using data in any way or using emails. And this is very important that everyone has or build this awareness of cybersecurity. And yes, based on this assessment, when we did that, then we have some tailored security measures that should be implemented. And that would be the next step, implementation, and especially of security controls. So based on the step 1, on the risk assessment, the security controls must be introduced. And these include technical and organizational measures. For example, the encryption of sensitive data, very important. The introduction of multi-factor authentication, regular security updates, and not to postpone, do it regularly. It's very important. And one of the most important points, training employees on cybersecurity best practices. Then we have the incident response planning. Every company must ensure that they are prepared for potential security incidents. And this involves, you should develop an incident response plan. And one tip, in case of a cyber attack, it's often impossible to access digital folders or in general your computer. So I would highly recommend to print out this incident response plan, because if it's printed, you have it physically and you don't need to access any digital folder. Then you need to regularly review your incident response plan. Is it still up to date, or do we need to change something? You need to establish a very clear process and responsibilities to respond quickly and effectively in the event of a cyber attack, because you only have 24 hours to report it and you only have 72 to write this report that is very detailed. They require a lot of details. And one of the key questions is, how do we in our company in an emergency respond, and who is responsible? And just to give you a quick overview how we do this kind of incident response plans here at China Brand, we have 5 steps basically. The first steps is prepare. So plan, monitor, be aware, be alert, and test and exercise. And then in case of this incident, is it an incident? You need to confirm the incident. You need to classify it. And you need to investigate specific questions. This depends on the company and the sector and another criteria. But you need to have to answer some questions. And then the next steps is you need to document every activity, all the actions, all the decisions, record as much as possible. And a remediation action plan is also very important. And then in the best case, you learn out of it and you improve. So there should be a post-incident review, and you should update your documents and templates. And then the last steps, recovery. Recover and report. And not only report to the cybersecurity center, but also an internal incident report. You should hold an internal meeting to reflect, like a lessons learned meeting. What happened? What do we need to improve? How do we recover? And an also important step, what we also include in this plan is specific people. Like, for example, if you are an incident manager in the middle, there should be your name, your contact details, and what you should do in if an incident is happening. So you should communicate with affected users if there is someone affected, or you should report to the management team. And this is just a rough draft, but usually you could design it very detailed with the people, with the email addresses, with the telephone numbers, and always keep it up to date. Are the people still in the company? Are they still on the same position? That would be one approach to do this kind of plan. And step 4, supplier management. So this is a very interesting point, what often people are not thinking about. So you need to manage your supplier as well, because third-party suppliers often pose also high security risks. So you need to do a supplier risk assessment. You need to evaluate if these suppliers are maybe in the critical services, if they are doing also regular risk assessment. And then you need to make sure that you establish clear policies on supply chain security. And another important point, there are digital supply chains. This is a point people often don't think about. So what is a digital supply chain? It means that a shared IT system, for example, if you work with subsidiaries or other entities and you share the same ERP or CRM system, you have a digital supply chain. So this is also very important to be aware of. Then you need to monitor and audit, and also have an incident response plan in best case with suppliers. And supplier onboarding and offboarding helps with this. So you can make sure from the beginning what are your requirements. Supply chain continuity is another point, and legal and regulatory compliance. And if you focus on these areas, not only your business, but also your suppliers can mitigate the risks that can be, that can be imposed on your supply chain. And last step, monitoring and regular testing. It's not done with an implementation. You need to monitor your systems. Very important. Do regular security audits because hackers are getting better and better. They are learning, and so should be the update of your IT system. It should be get regular updates and get better over time. Do penetration tests. And this is just very essential to verify the effectiveness and to detect vulnerabilities early. One question you could ask, are our systems truly secure or are there undiscovered weaknesses? That would be the 5 recommended steps from our side. And I see I only have 1 minute left, so I will hurry a little bit. Belgium has these 11 required security measures specifically written in the law just promulgated in April. So risk management and security systems, as I just talked about, incident management for effective response, as I just mentioned, have a response plan, business continuity and crisis management, have a backup management, have a disaster recovery plan, supply chain security, I just talked about, all the security and procurement, development and maintenance of networks and information system, policies and procedures for evaluating the effectiveness of your measures, cyber hygiene and security training for employees, very important point, and procedures for using cryptography and, if and where applicable, encryption for your data. Yes, and for the last point, I'm nearly done. I want to emphasize one more important thing. Oh, I missed 2 more. Personal security access. Okay, you will get the slides. You can read it later on in detail again. I hope you all know Big Bang Theory. If not, on the left we have Sheldon, on the right we have Penny. They are 2 living together, and in this situation, it's a very funny situation. Sheldon is driving in a car with Penny, and Sheldon says, "Oh, your check engine light is on, so you should probably go and let your engine be checked." And then Penny is saying, "It's fine, it's been on for like a month." And I think this is a very wonderful situation and picture describing how we deal, or I would say an normal employee, have nothing to do with cybersecurity or IT, is dealing with some, for example, check engine lights now in the business context. If some pop-ups are on your computer saying, oh, maybe you should make an update on your system, or there's a phishing mail coming every week and you just ignore it, you just delete it. And this is the wrong way to do it, just to emphasize it. If you feel, or if you see something is not right, if something is blinking, or you get a notification that you should check something, if you're not sure, ask the responsible person or the person of your cybersecurity or IT department for help, because it's getting severe and more severe over the time. And it's not the question that if we are getting attacked by cyber attacks or if we are getting hacked, it's more like it will happen for sure. But the question is, how severe will be the consequences, or how high will be the losses? Yes, I want to close up with these sentences. And thank you very much for your attention. If you have questions, feel free to ask. We are here to answer.
Thank you very much, Tamara. Thank you, Dr. Fuchs, for your very brilliant expose. Tamara, you started by saying that cybercrime is expected to skyrocket. You gave an historical overview of the regulation of NIS-2 with NIS-1 that started in 2016. You have noted that NIS-2 was adopted in 2022 and implemented in Belgium already in April 2024. Belgium likes regulations. You have also draw attention that in the EU it had to be implemented for October this month, 2024. You also draw our attention that on the fact that here in Belgium, by March 2025, entities are required to register with the Belgian Center for Cybersecurity. Then you detailed the regulation article by article with Articles 2 and the scope of the regulation, which applies to public or private entities, and you detailed that. You also draw the attention on who's affected by this, the critical sectors that were already under NIS-1, like banks, energy sector, but there are additional sectors like research, space, postal and courier services, and so on. Article 7 speaks about national cybersecurity strategy, where each state has to create a national security plan. With Article 8, who are the responsible authorities, and each EU state has a single point of contact, like the Center for Cybersecurity in Belgium. Article 20 and the governance, who is supposed to govern that, the managers of key institutions. For instance, you have Article 21 with cybersecurity risk management measures, and companies should implement appropriate technical and operational cybersecurity measures, which must be based on the latest technology, among others. Article 23, the reporting obligations of the companies that should report significant security incidents, among others, and within a specific time, 24 hours for the report of the incident and 72 hours for a more detailed report. Article 32, supervisory and enforcement measures, where on-site inspections and external audits can be conducted, for instance, and what happens if violations are shown. You have warnings and eventually fines. What is the concept of serious violation? You detailed it. What is also interesting is to note that the personal liability of the responsible person within the company can be retained. Article 35, you have the NIS Directive related to GDPR, and you have explained the connection with it. And what is also very interesting in your speech is the recommended approach you and your company are suggesting to the Belgian and European companies, as well as to the Chinese companies doing business over here. You detailed 5 steps with risk assessment and management, implementation of security controls, incident response planning, supplier management, and monitoring and regular testing. you ended your speech with some required security measures, 11 measures here for Belgium. So Tamara, thank you very much for your speech. I think it shows our companies that there is a new regulations they have to take into account, definitely, like GDPR was enacted some years ago. Well, now companies must comply with it, but this is new, and this will be added to GDPR. Now we have time for a few questions, and I have a first question from Eric Famay. I read the question. There is a GDPR and NIS in the EU, then there is PIPL, CSL, and soon NDSMR in China. Are there additional regulations to comply with if European companies dealing with the US as well as China? Is this all still workable and affordable for a company? What would be the cost to outsource that? I think it's a specific question for small and medium-sized companies who could be a little bit afraid of these regulations and the obligations it implies. So I leave the floor to our experts.
So if it's affordable, I think I want to ask another question. Is it affordable to not be compliant? In case of an assessment by the authorities, there might be a big fine. It depends. My favorite answer, it depends. It depends always on the company. So if you are working with very sensitive personal information, regardless of your size, it is very important to be compliant. But it should be checked in detail for every case. So I think in general, I want to say it's more it costs you more if you are not compliant. And I think there are always ways to become compliant even on a small budget. So if you have compliant documents that show that you are in the process, or that you started, or that you are willing to become compliant, or I mean, there are always several steps how you can become compliant. And if you did already a few of them and show the authorities your good intention, then you're always on the safer side than just to ignore it. So I would recommend, do not ignore it when you think you don't have enough money to afford it. Start it, because if they are checking it, if the authority comes and want access to your compliance document and you have none of them, this is even worse than paying beforehand.
About that, do you have? Could you give us ideas about how high the fines can be as foreseen by the law? I know that with the GDPR, the fines can be very, very high because it can be a percentage of the turnover of the company. How is it with the NIS-2 regulation?
This also depends on the company size, how severe the incident is, and what are the consequences, and what is your turnover as well. So this is very hard to answer.
Mm-hmm. Could it be a percentage of the turnover?
I think it is a specific percentage of the turnover. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Oh,
but I can also check it for Belgium now, or just in general.
My question was in general, if something specific was foreseen, a little bit like with GDPR. But I have also two questions. One from myself. With GDPR, you have data protection officers now foreseen by the regulation and within the company. Do you think we will have the need for cybersecurity officers within the company? How do you see that?
So the statistic looks like we need one soon. Yes. I hope not, but I'm afraid this is something that it's getting more and more important because we are getting more and more connected. Everything is becoming digitalized, and so this is on the same rise. So everything is digital, and on the same side, the cybersecurity incidents are rising because everything is digital and everything is more sensitive to digital attacks as well. So it might be, yes, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. We have a question from Karel van Aver. What is the difference between the NIS-2 and the CRA, the Cyber Resilience Act? Do you have some light on that?
That's a good question. I think the Cyber Resilience Act is more. So the NIS-2 is it's a very broad frame, giving you the framework to comply in these. So it's a little bit hard to say. So for example, the NIS-2 says, as I just mentioned, one example, that it depends on your size and on your activities, what you need to do, and then they give you the freedom that each nation can promulgate its own small laws. Let's say it like this. And the Cyber Resilience Act is more detailed, that they give you specific encryption methods, for example, for specific outputs of data. But I'm not 100% sure. We don't have so much connection to the Cyber Resilience Act yet.
Okay, well, that can, yeah.
And to answer your question before, for the fees, so it can be up to 10 million, but for sure 10% of your annual turnover.
Then it's worthwhile to have a cybersecurity officer in the companies. It will be less expensive. Yes. Thank you very much. I think we are now arriving to the end of our webinar. I have to thank our two speakers, Dr. Fisch, Tamara Hehne, for your very interesting speech, and who draws our attention to the need to take some measures in order to comply with the new regulation first, but also to face the danger of the cybercrime, which will continue to grow, and our companies cannot afford to be the victim of cybercrime without being able to take any measures. So I would like to thank you very much. I know that you will forward to us your slides so that we can distribute to our members. Don't hesitate to contact Dr. Fisch and Tamara Hehne if you have further questions or some specific requests. I'm sure they would be keen to get in touch with you. So thank you very much to our two speakers. I draw your attention on our upcoming events. As you will see, we will be present at Flanders Investment and Trade International Business Summit next week. We will have also on the 7th of November an event at CIIE in Shanghai. We will have another event on the 14th of November, Chengdu, about Chengdu, with a delegation from Chengdu. So you are more than welcome to attend this. We will have another webinar on the 21st of November with about the Chinese platforms, and on the 28th of November we will have a guided visit near Bruges to the Halvemaan Brewery. So if you are also interested, please register. We will, but in the meantime, I hope to see many of you on the 6th of November at the Flanders Investment and Trade event here in Zaventem. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We are coming to an end. Thank you again to our two speakers, and I wish you a very nice afternoon and successful activities in your business. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bernard, for having us.
Thank you.